Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, although we have been going since 2015, I think February was the biggest month for downloads that we've ever had on this show. And for saying that is the shortest month of the year, it is just incredible. And I cannot thank you enough for joining me on this journey. And because of that, I wanted to share something with you too and be completely transparent and authentic. Because I am quite conscious that some people could be listening anywhere in the world and thinking, you know what, that old boy never gets ill, always gets a podcast out every day without fail. Is he superhuman or something? Well, my secret is that I do record this daily podcast in batches, so I am around 7 to 10 days ahead at the moment. And as regular listeners will know, I'm not a fan of how social media and stuff like that can make people appear superhuman, but make no mistake, I am just a guy like everyone else that has ups and downs throughout my life. And as I record today's episode, my father-in-law has just moved in with us after a heart attack and heart surgery. And to top it all, our worst nightmare has happened. The three of us have all tested positive for COVID. So as we record today's episode, I do have a banging head, chills, aches, etc. But the show must go on, my friends. And I tell you all this just so that you know that I'm not some kind of podcasting machine, but just a bloke with a microphone that has off days too. But hey, this isn't a sympathy podcast, it's a tech podcast, and I am grateful that you choose to spend a few minutes with me every day exploring how technology is transforming our life, work, industry and world. Now today I am delighted to get Raffi onto the podcast, who is the founder of Triada Networks. And Raffi has been in the cybersecurity industry for 25 years and currently helps small business owners with limited budgets protect their assets and grow exponentially with cybersecurity tools. Between me and you, he is a great guy too, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New Jersey so we can speak with him right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Raffi Jimgochin. I'm president and CTO of Triada Networks. We're a boutique IT services firm that caters to the financial services industry in and around New York City.
And you have been in the cybersecurity industry for 25 years. I'm curious, though, where did your passion for cybersecurity come from? Can you remember what put you on this path?
There's a distinct memory, actually. It was we had started kind of going down the security path a little bit, dipping our toes in the water when we first started helping. I started helping this financial firm connect to the internet, but there was a specific event in 2003 when the code red worm broke out at the company, and somebody downloaded something, a typical thing, worm broke out, started spreading around from computer to computer, and that really fascinated me, and that kind of led me down this path of trying to figure out why this stuff happens, how it works, and then how to stop it from happening in the begin with.
And on that path that you've taken there, you've had a fantastic career in technology. So can I ask that you share some of the challenges and struggles relating to owning and growing an IT business, and ultimately how you overcame some of those challenges too?
When you're a technician for most of your life, at that point, I had been working in IT about 12, 13 years before I started Triada. And you're like, oh, well, I know the technology. This shouldn't be a problem. But then you realize that even the business degree that you may have gotten in, I had gotten through an MBA at that point, a master's in business, while at working for my previous firm. It didn't prepare me for actually being a business owner, and putting on that other hat was definitely a change of pace for me. And, making sure, especially, understanding what your numbers are and making sure that you are profitable every month. Those are the things that really kind of threw me for a loop in the beginnings.
And you also recently co-authored an Amazon bestseller called On Thin Ice, and you wrote that with 30 other cybersecurity experts. Can you tell me more about that book?
It's similar folks as me. We each had a chapter. Each chapter is of a different subject related to cybersecurity. So most are business related, but not necessarily. There's some self-protection and family protection kind of things. Some are vertical specific, but many are general. So we got together and put this book together, and it made the Amazon bestseller, which I'm very proud of. My particular subject was on the really, exciting topic of security frameworks. I say that with tongue in cheek, but it kind of identifying what the importance of that is in an overall program.
And if we look at the whole of the book there and each of the subjects captured within that book, what were the key takeaways or messages that you think you all wanted to deliver within that book?
Well, I think overall, and then this goes in general with cybersecurity is a real thing. I think most companies fall in either one of several camps. Either they bury their head in the sands and try not to think about it, or they are paranoid to the point that it's crippling them. But the reality is there's a middle ground where you can be concerned, but not overwhelmed if you partner yourself up with the right people and put the right things in place that don't necessarily have to cost an arm and a leg.
And something I always ask every guest that comes on this podcast, especially if they've got an area of expertise, is there any myths or misconceptions that frustrate the hell out of them and they just want to get it off their chest and finally lay it to rest? So in your case, are there any myths and misconceptions around cybersecurity that you'd like to lay to rest today?
I think it's my last point. Really, it doesn't have to be so overwhelmingly expensive. The reality is that it's not if but when. You'll have to have an event that you have to react to, and planning ahead of time is going to help you recover from that event, but B, ultimately help you survive from that event. If you don't plan, if you fail to plan, it makes it a lot harder to recover from an incident when it happens.
And before you came on the podcast, I did do a little research on you guys and quickly learned that Triada Networks offers corporate level security, but with the budget of a boutique firm. But can you expand on that and tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of things that you do and the problems that you solve for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, most of our clients are on the smaller side. So, they're competing with companies like the big investment firms that are out there, but they are much smaller. They're typically, anywhere between a dozen to 2 dozen to 3 dozen employees. And they don't necessarily have the wherewithal to hire a full-time IT person, let alone also a cybersecurity group. So we're able to actually put together fairly robust security measures that don't break the budget, B, don't get in their way of doing work. That's another myth that we probably should have touched on a little bit, is that cybersecurity slows you down. It doesn't necessarily have to if it's done right. And then C, ultimately compete against those bigger guys and do well in the market.
And I'm curious, from the conversations that you're having with your clients, are there any big trends or reoccurring questions that they're coming to you with? And how are you helping them overcome these challenges?
It's visibility. It's not understanding what they don't know. Right now, it's kind of everything with folks primarily working from home or from remote locations outside of the office, making sure that they're secured while they're doing their daily work. Without compromising their business, but still allowing them to have access to their information and their data. That's been obviously the challenge for the past year. But the answer is that there's a way through it, depending on what your company culture is and how you want to go forward. So that would be my message, is to kind of sit down with your professionals and talk through what your options are in order to move forward in this current situation.
And if you wanted listeners to remember one thing about our conversation around cybersecurity today, what would it be? Is there anything that in particular keeps you awake at night?
Well, let me stay awake at night so that you don't have to. That's kind of, I would say that's the phrase, get people involved so that you can rest assured that somebody is watching your hen house while the wolves are out there.
And is there, I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but is there anything around what you're working on this year at Triada Networks, or anything that excites you about the road ahead? Is there anything you can leave us with today?
Yeah, I think, we had a vision where we believe that the business perimeter had been leaving, basically that where in the past our defenses were all around, okay, we're going to protect everything that's in the office and we're going to defend that from the people on the outside. And that we've long felt that paradigm is overdue to be overhauled. 2020 basically accelerated that forward. So our vision of where we thought the market was going kind of caught up to our thinking now, and now it's time to put that into place faster than before. With all the cloud services that people are consuming, with more and more people working from outside of their four walls, it's imperative to kind of rethink about how you're conducting business, but also on a business process point of view, not only and a cybersecurity point of view.
And if there are any businesses that would like to find out more information about the kind of work you're doing at Triada Networks, or even any individuals or business leaders want to check out your book, can you remind everyone listening where they can find out more information and how to contact your team?
Yeah, our website is triadanet.com. If you go to triadanet.com/podcast, we have a little giveaway that you can fill out some information. We won't spam you too much, but we'll give you some actual actionable things that you can do to support yourself. But if you go to triadanet.com/cybersecurity book, you'll also find out more information about the book.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the blog post that will accompany this episode, just so people can find you all nice and easily. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk to me today. Thanks again, Raffi.
Thank you, Neil. I really appreciate it.
Like I said at the beginning, Raffi has been in the cybersecurity and IT field for over 25 years, first in corporate finance and later as the owner of his own firm. And Triada Networks supports boutique investment firms. And I am interested in checking out that book he co-authored, On Thin Ice, which was written with 30 other cybersecurity experts. And I love that line he used in the interview there. Let me stay awake at night so you don't have to. And make sure that you've got someone looking over your hen house while the wolves roam. But that's it for today's episode. I have had to edit a few coughs out of this outro, but other than that, we're all good. And my father-in-law is currently watching Spartacus, so I'm going to grab a few painkillers, drink lots of fluids, and fall asleep in my chair like an old man. How rock and roll am I? Seriously though, I will be back tomorrow no matter what, because I do have lots of interviews backed up and scheduled ready to go. So keep your questions coming in to techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can DM me on various social channels such as Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So I will meet you in your podcast feed bright and early tomorrow. But a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.